Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is certainly no stranger to agriculture, and it is indeed an honor for me to introduce to you this morning the only farmer serving in the North Carolina Senate. Brent Jackson is a first-generation farmer. He's co-founder of Jackson Farming Company in Autryville in Sampson County. Senator Jackson grows a wide array of fruits and vegetables, as well as flue-cured tobacco. Senator Brent Jackson is an influential member of the Senate. He's been a champion for agriculture in rural communities. He's been one of the driving forces behind the enactment of many important agricultural bills since his election to the Senate in 2011. During this 2017 session, he was instrumental in the passage of two important agriculture bills that we certainly endorsed: the 2017 North Carolina Farm Act and a bill that capped the damages that may be awarded in nuisance lawsuits against farms. Senator Jackson is a friend of this organization. We know him well. Our state legislative team works with him on a daily basis. Let's welcome to our podium and to this convention our friend, Senator Brent Jackson. Senator Jackson.
Good morning, everyone. Before I tell Larry thank you and Farm Bureau thank you, I'll tell you that again. Is Senator Tilley still here and Congressman Rouser? I hope they are. I want them to learn something very quickly. They talked about Towers Mingledorf. Well, most of us in here as farmers know you have to till the soil and you have to plant the seeds. Well, I was the seed planter for Towers, so I trained him well when David Rouser stole him from me. And then, you know, Senator Tilley sort of returned the favor and stole Towers from David. So, you know, and when I seen him earlier, I went to speak to Senator Tilley. Well, I bypassed him and went straight to Towers, and Senator Tilley says, don't you come back and get him. So, but no, Towers has been great to work with, and he has been an asset to agriculture, and I'm proud of him and of what he's turned out to be. I'm also proud of another individual that's here with me today. Ross, stand up. Ross Barnhart. I have Ross and Alex in my office, and Ross handles my policy, and Alex sort of handles the constituency issues. So if you call into my office, you will talk with Ross or Alex, and both of them are good young men and have been great to work with. And as Towers was, they've been very like a sponge, absorbing what it is to be in the agriculture business. Again, Larry, thank you for having me here this morning. I want to sort of do things just a little different. We've heard what's going on the national level, but I want to sort of tell you some of the things we've done on the state level. Just so you know, those of you might not know me, I like to pick and cut up a little bit and have some fun, you know, and I always am picking on Rouser, and a lot of times I pick on Commissioner Troxler as well. And we were sitting there a while ago, and when Larry said that Commissioner Troxler would follow me, Commissioner punched me. He says, I get the last word. I went back there and got me some water and come back, and I thought about that thing a minute, and I come back and I punched him. I says, just remember who writes your budget. So we have a little fun. And as I told Rouser here just a few weeks ago, he was talking on sort of like he was here today, you know, just never ending. And I told him, you know, I says, you got to learn how to do this thing. I says, we get something done in North Carolina. I says, in the North Carolina Senate and the North Carolina House, we actually understand what it's like to be in the produce business. You have to actually sell it or smell it, and so we get something done. Could y'all do that in D.C., please? So North Carolina Farm Bureau has been a great ally as we have passed numerous laws to help advance the agriculture industry in North Carolina. North Carolina Farm Bureau has been crucial in helping to pass the annual Farm Act, Agricultural Nuisance Law Reform, and the Property Protection Act. Those are three major pieces of legislation. Too often we all hear about the trivial political issues dividing us, and not enough attention is paid to the significant policy reforms that we have enacted. And I want to just share some of those things with you today and use this opportunity to go over and go back to the last 7 years of what we've accomplished. I'm going to start with agriculture, the thing that is most dear to me and to my heart and to this group. When I decided to run for office in 2010, it was because I could no longer stand back and watch agriculture, our state's #1 industry, take a back seat in the policies that were being implemented in Raleigh. At $84 billion a year industry, it is not only the backbone of our economy, agriculture, but it represents a way of life for many of us, and those of us here in this room especially, and all our rural communities. You can't say ag and not be talking about rural North Carolina. And I'm proud to have started the tradition of the annual Farm Act. We're on our 5th or 6th one, might be 6th one now. And what the Farm Act has done is a conglomeration, I guess, and some folks call it an anonymous bill, but it's where we have taken different things and we've rolled back regulations. We have tried to put things in there to support and foster our #1 industry, the agriculture. The Farm Act has addressed simple issues such as being allowed to haul the round hay bales side by side, but we've also tackled larger issues such as tort reform and tax policy. Senator Tillis mentioned it earlier when he was Speaker of the House. He and I had many conversations on the farmer's sales tax exemption when we were doing tax reform. We came this close to losing it. And I thank Senator Tillis, Speaker Tillis at the time, for being willing to listen and to understand that 7% that we would have to pay on taxes, that 7% that comes straight off our bottom line. And that would take a profitable operation and turn it into an unprofitable one. And everyone in this room understands that. Some of the meaningful ag reforms enacted include allowing the Department of Agriculture. I want you to listen to this one. This is one of my favorite ones. We allowed the Commissioner's Office to actually issue non-monetary fines. Instead, he wanted to educate folks instead of writing them a ticket. And in situations where a fine was necessary, he wanted to train them so we could do that. Imagine that. Some common sense. Amazing. But he can do that. We've limited compensatory damages and nuisance lawsuits to no more than the plaintiff's property value. We've strengthened our right to work laws relating to agriculture employers. We gave the farmer a rebuttable presumption when a consumer claims their product made them sick. Now, most of us, including myself, had no clue what a rebuttable presumption is. But if you'll mention a rebuttable presumption to an attorney, especially a trial attorney, they get weak in the knees. This is big stuff, folks. We allowed landowners to use their water that is located on their property for agricultural activities, even during water shortages. We have conformed the tax withholding for H-2A workers to the federal standard, which does not require farm employers to withhold taxes. We gave the governor the power to waive truck weight inspections during declared emergencies to allow farmers to get their crops out of the fields before a major storm. We've made changes to the present use program, present PUV values, to make it more consistent and predictable across the state. And in our business tax climate, currently North Carolina ranks 11th in the nation for business tax climates by the Tax Foundation. This is in comparison to 2014 when we ranked 44th in the country. This ranking is in part due to the substantial tax reform that we have passed. We have eliminated the temporary $1 billion sales tax that was put into place during the Great Recession. We've lowered the personal income tax from the 3-tier system with a maximum rate of 7.9% to a flat rate that will be 5.25% in 2019. We are raising the standard deduction to $20,000 in 2019. That is big stuff, folks, when you hear about raising the standard deduction to $20,000. I can't remember, but it is a large percentage of North Carolinians will pay zero state taxes because of that. We've lowered the corporate tax rate from 7.1%, and it will become to 2.5% in 2019. And the other thing that we done early on was we eliminated the North Carolina estate tax, the death tax. We eliminated it in North Carolina, and I commend our Congress and our senators for doing it in the federal tax plan, and we definitely need to get that passed. On unemployment, Senator Tillis mentioned a little bit about that. When I took office in 2011, our state was facing a $2.5 billion deficit, and we had a double-digit unemployment rate. Our employment insurance fund was relying on IOUs from the federal government, and our state's rainy day fund was nearing depletion. Reforming our unemployment insurance system was key to protecting North Carolina's financial health. During the last recession, previous leaders had borrowed over $2.5 billion from the federal government to pay for unemployment benefits. With now Treasurer Farwell's leadership, we were able to reform our program to bring our benefits to more reasonable amounts and put them in line with what our surrounding states offer. We paid off the debt we owed the federal government ahead of schedule, which saved North Carolina businesses over $280 million. We are currently now fortunate to have $2.8 billion in this account. That's for our next recession. We've stabilized key government programs. We've enacted policies to stabilize our state health plan and pension plan, which has had a history of shortfalls, which stuck taxpayers with the bill. Since 2011, we have fully funded the pension plan every year, and we're now taking steps to address the unfunded liability that has built up over the decades. Responsible budgets. We have passed a balanced budget since 2011, which thankfully our Constitution requires North Carolina to pass a balanced budget. When I ran for the state Senate, one of the few things I promised to bring to Raleigh was fiscal conservatism and to spend the taxpayers' money as carefully as I do my own. And because of responsible budgeting, we have turned a $2.5 billion structural deficit into a surplus and adopted a balanced budget every year since 2011. Our savings reserve, part of our responsible budgeting, is saving for the future. We have increased the state's rainy day fund from $150 million in 2010 to $1.84 billion this year, which is the highest level the fund has ever been at since it began in the early 1990s. Disasters like Hurricane Matthew and the wildfires we had last year out in the West emphasize the importance of saving. This past session, we also passed a bill to move savings to the forefront of the budgeting process. Up until this bill passed, the savings reserve had been an afterthought. Whatever was left over was what we saved. There's very few of us sitting in this room that can operate our households or our businesses with that attitude. So what we've done is we put in place, before anything else is done in the budget, that every year at the forefront will automatically 15% of new growth revenue will go to the rainy day fund. We have moved savings from the bottom of the poll to the top of the priority list so that we will be sure to be able to weather the next storms that come through our way, whether they be natural weather or whether they be economical disasters that come our way. While no General Assembly can bind another one, this will help ensure that future legislators place an emphasis on setting money aside in the good years. And we were one of the few states, when we started this savings reserve, I want to just pause a moment and talk about it. When we got looking into this, we were one of the few states that did not have any policy in place on why we saved and how we saved. Very few. But when we finished with this bill, we were in the top 4 in the nation of having a perfect rainy day savings plan. We've strengthened education. We've created the Read to Achieve program for K through 3. We've established a transparent A through F school grading system. We've provided funding to class sizes in K through 3. We've removed the cap on charter schools, and we have also provided for opportunity scholarships to provide more academic choices for families. We've reformed teacher pay by collapsing the antiquated 32-step pay scale, and we have moved towards an evidence-based schedule. We raised the starting teacher's pay to $35,000, and the average teacher in this state makes $50,000 currently today. Since 2011, the legislature has invested more than $1.5 billion additional state dollars in K through 12. We're also continuing to make our higher education affordable. In 2016, we passed the Access to the Affordable College Education Act. It guarantees no in-state tuition increases for a standard undergraduate college term at all North Carolina public universities. This tuition guarantee also applies to members of the military based in North Carolina. It also freezes student fees, often used to fund non-academic expenses. We've lowered tuition at select universities just this past year to $1,000 per year for in-state students, and the reduced tuition applies to the following schools beginning in the fall of 2018: Elizabeth City State University, University of North Carolina at Pembroke, and Western Carolina University. Reform Medicaid. From 2011 to 2013, the legislature had to fill a Medicaid shortfall totaling $2 billion. That was money that could not be used elsewhere for other priorities. We reformed Medicaid to add cost predictability and savings by moving us to a capitated whole person care system, and recently Medicaid has come under budget with nearly a $400 surplus. We've improved our transportation by taking politics out of the way roads are decided to be built and upgraded by creating the STI program. We also last year passed a $2 billion, we did, as taxpayers, passed a $2 billion bond that was the bond to make key investments that will benefit North Carolina for decades to come. This bond amount is well within our debt capacity. As you well might know, but I'll refresh our priorities in the bond. We spending $980 million for upgrades to the UNC system, $350 million for the community college system, $70 million to modernize our North Carolina National Guard readiness centers, $8.5 million for a public safety training academy, $300 million grant and loan program for community water and sewer infrastructure investments, $85 million for the Plant Science Initiative, and I seen Dean Linton here a little while ago, and $94 million for a new agriculture and vet lab. And I'm sure the commissioner will speak on this when he comes, but his labs were so old and antiquated, it was time we had to do something for that. Now I'm going to wrap all this up with the results. You know, while not all these reforms that we have done have been easy decisions, it's sort of like Senator Tillis was speaking about my friend William Brisson. You know, sometimes you have to make tough decisions. And we've made tough decisions. And I think the results have spoken for themselves on how we're doing in the state, in our state as compared to the nation. Since 2010, our state has added over 500,000 private sector jobs, and we have cut our double-digit unemployment rate in half. Companies similar and like Novo Nordisk are investing hundreds of millions of dollars in our state to expand operations, and in Novo Nordisk's case, they're investing billions. Our university system and renowned colleges remain a national envy, and we continue to invest more in education. And thanks to the significant tax reform and regulation reduction, we now have one of the fastest growing economies in the country. At the end of the day, I can honestly say that I believe we have made significant progress in moving North Carolina forward. We are well on our way to grow North Carolina's #1 agriculture industry to over $100 billion. I appreciate you having me here this morning, and I want to thank you for allowing me to serve you in the North Carolina Senate. I also want to close by saying thank you, Larry, thank you, members, for all your financial support, your prayers that you have given to me to serve you in the North Carolina Senate, and you have been most generous, and I am humbled and very appreciative of your support. Thank y'all all very much. God bless you, and Merry Christmas.